So thank you everyone for joining us today. Our workshop title is Risk Management. Now, this is a topic that most farmers we do because that's a part of our life. We do it. We walk around our farm, we see things and we're like, I need to take care of that. So we do risk management, but most of the time we don't really think of it as risk management. And that's why we're having these series of risk management starting this month. So wanted to let you all know that we have some awesome speakers and farmers that's going to be gracing you with some, just things that they're doing on their farm is just totally amazing. And so the first person we have is Daphne Snow. I'm so proud and honored to know her. And the risk management stuff, we do it. We are we are farmers. We see these things every single day. But these series starting now in June, going into July, which we will start doing face-to-face events in July for NCAT with our risk management project. And so one, I want you to stay in tune to our Facebook page, all our social media, definitely our YouTube channel. That's where all of our videos, once they're edited, they end up on our NCAT ATTRA YouTube channel. So please, please, please always go back, check in, see what we have added. And of course, that YouTube channel is all of our specialists across the United States. So you're going to find a wealth of information. So the other goal of risk management for this particular project that we want to see is after you hear these farmers, then you go back and you do a walkthrough. We are doing these, we do walkthroughs every day when we're working on our farm, but we want you to start thinking about preparing a risk management plan for your farm. That's the goal of these projects, that you actually write something down. Now, the purpose of that is for, of course, yourself, but if you have children that assist you, grandchildren, if you have volunteers, if you have employees, that particular plan can be, set up somewhere on your farm that if this happens, this is what you do. And that's why we're doing this particular project and understanding that risk management is very important to us. So little housekeeping, we are recorded. So we definitely, if you want to be on camera, that's fine, but we just want you to know that we are recording. And then also, if you have questions, comments, please place them in the chat. That's where we will be pulling the questions today to forward to our speaker. So again, we thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going to get started. Our speaker today is Daphne Snow. She is the farm manager of Choctaw Fresh. And then I'm also going to allow her to share her backstory. How did Daphne get started in farming and end up a career as a farmer on this particular awesome, beautiful site that she works on? And then we're going to move from there. So Daphne, I'm going to hand it over to you to share just your backstory, how you have become a farmer and a farmer as a career.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope I do well on this. This is probably one of my first real Zoom interviews, other than a few during COVID. But anyway, I'll get started. Yes, I am the farm manager for Choctaw Fresh Produce in Choctaw, Mississippi. And we are a fresh produce vegetable production, organic production, farming operation that is owned by the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. And we are located on their reservation in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and some surrounding counties. I've been the farm manager for about the past 5 years, but I've worked for Choctaw Fresh Produce for the last 9 years. And I took on a role that I wasn't expecting. We had a unexpected death with our faculty. the general manager actually passed away about 5 years ago. So it was kind of thrown into my hands to take over all the aspects of farming, from the seeding to the planting to harvesting, everything. So it was kind of a learn as you go and take on the responsibility. And Choctaw Fresh Produce has been in business since 2012. We did operate 5 mini farms, and now we are operating 4 mini farms. The Choctaw Reservation is spread out over a few counties, and in the beginning, it was our mission to place a farm in 7 of the communities, and we ended up in 5 of the communities. And in the past few years, we figured out that it was very hard to get around to all 5 farms. So we have tried to relocate one of the farms to one of our central locations. So now we have 4 farms. And we operate these 4 farms with very limited staff, and have for the past 9 years. But we have made it. We're still making progress, and we're still here, and we're still going strong. The way I see it.
Yes, yes.
And back to what you said, I got into farming. I grew up farming. My parents always farmed, and I guess I always had a passion for that and didn't know it, because as a child, you think it's torture when they put you out in the fields and want you to work. And then when you get older, I think I learned to appreciate it. And as I moved away from Mississippi and learned to eat healthy, and when I moved back to Mississippi, it was very hard to find organic produce. And I used to drive from Philadelphia 2 to 3 hours just to purchase organic produce. And then when the opportunity came and somebody said, would you like to be an organic farmer for the tribe? I thought I was dreaming. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. And I stepped in and said, yes, I would love to. And that's how I got here. And I hope to remain here till I retire.
I love that story, Daphne. Definitely, you're saying that a dream come true. Like just being
Yes.
asked to be placed in that position is a dream come true. And a lot of us have that when it comes to farming. Like we really are doing what we love to do. So at this time, because we see that you're on the farm, you're on one of the farms. Could you
Yes.
quickly share with us, because you said mini farm, but I've been to those other sites. Most people, when you say many, they think many. Can you share and expound on that a little bit? It's not necessarily many at the other locations.
Yes. We actually have, at one time, we had 18 high tunnels in production. And the size of those high tunnels, all but 2 were 30 by 96. And we have 2 that are 30 by 150. And in the process of relocating one of the farms, actually the farm I'm at today will be our main production farm. There will be 6 30 by 150 tunnels. We call them mega tunnels, and 1 30 by 95, and 1 greenhouse. And at the other farms, the other 3 locations, we have 3 30 by 96 tunnels at each farm. And we're also trying to do some field production, and we also have blueberries at some of the farms. And we're hoping in this year to also incorporate fruit trees. And the farm I'm located at today, we're also in the process of constructing a demonstration community garden, and that will focus more on culturally significant plants. And it'll be a place that the community can come out and tour, harvest, and it's also to educate.
Got you. Wow. So that was one thing I really wanted you to share, because most people, when you say many, they are thinking, small type farm. And so wanted to make sure everyone understood that you mean, that's a large production, starting with 18 high tunnels being that size. And so definitely wanted to make sure that we shared that with everyone. So at this time, Daphne, could you do the walkthrough? And we're kind of going to do this virtual farm tour where you can share with us some of your risks, things that you see and that you would identify as risk.
Okay, and one other thing I wanted to mention, in the beginning when Choctaw Fresh started, the main mission was to impact the economy for the tribe. And that was to place a farm at each of the communities to create jobs at that community. But when COVID hit and the tribe was impacted so bad by COVID, I think we changed our focus, and it showed us how to change our focus and what to focus on. And instead of making a economic impact, we are now focused on impacting the health of the tribe. So our goal is to get as much local, organic, fresh produce to tribal members as possible. So, and as everybody knows, in farming, it is, making an impact on the economy can be hard at times. So we hope to educate the tribe and, like I said, provide as much produce as possible. And now I will flip this around. And I'd also like to say, with organic farming and just farming in high tunnels, you learn something every single day. You may think you know what you're doing or how to do, and you learn tomorrow that what you were doing was not right, or that it was wrong, or you need to change some things up. So as you said, when you say risk management, it is a daily, sometimes hourly job to mitigate risk.
Definitely, that's definitely. So Daphne, share with us just things that you have somewhat put in place. Because I definitely, like, I see the flowers to the left. I know our audience may not be able to really tell that the beds are raised, but could you share with us why this particular management was done inside the high tunnels?
Yeah, and I'll give you a little history on that. When we started out, we did everything with tractors. We brought tractors in these tunnels. We did all the bed prep with tractors. We laid plastic with tractors. We laid drip line. When these pads were constructed for the tunnels, they were actually constructed like house pads, meaning the dirt was set up. I mean, it was actually dirt. It was not soil. And it took us 3 years. And in some of the tunnels, we're still trying to amend to create soil that you can actually grow in. So when I became farm manager, I said no to tractors being in the tunnels. So we have gone to a more no-till or minimal till in all the tunnels. We use only a small walk-behind tiller. We use a broad fork, and these are permanent beds. We've put weed cloth down between the rows to create a walking path, and the beds will remain here and stay as they are. And like you said, they are raised, and some of that is due to the ground was so hard underneath that you would have flooding sometimes because of drainage. So the more we raise the beds and keep them raised, the better it has been. And each year we try to add compost, certified organic compost. We do not do it ourselves, but we purchase it and bring it in to try to build these beds up even more. And some of the farms, the soil was so bad that we actually had to construct raised beds, 95 feet long, 3 feet wide, and fill those with compost and soil because we couldn't plant in what was there. And so that's one of the reasons for the raised permanent beds, and plus it eliminates you having to bring a tractor in.
That's wonderful. Could you share with us about the flowers and what type of risk that's mitigating by planting, or is that natural growth that's outside of the high tunnels?
No, we did do that. We did it for a couple of reasons. We seeded these. One was we picked out certain seed to bring pollinators in, and we also want to bring in the good bugs, the good predators, and we have a lot of grass to cut and weed eat. So planting the flowers on the side of the tunnels eliminated some of the labor from having to weed eat around all the tunnels. And it also is a conservation effort to bring back wildflowers. And right now we have them at every single farm. Some farms, they're right next to the tunnel. Other farms, we planted a strip all around the outside of the tunnel instead of right up next to it. And these come back every year. So once they're seeded, we haven't had to reseed. And plus it just makes your farm look a whole lot better. And in the beginning, when we first started out, we were actually purchasing bumblebee hives because we had no bees. So for 5 years, we purchased hives for every single tunnel. And the risk part of it, some of our farms have fencing and some do not. And we were having some kids making their way onto the farm and destroying the beehives. So, that was a risk that we had to end up either fencing the farm off or just not purchasing the bees anymore. But from my experience, since we've planted the flowers, we have a lot more bees now. So we do not purchase beehives anymore.
That's amazing. That looks so beautiful. And I think, did I see cattle panels as well? Are you utilizing those cattle panels for like deer, and what is the use of that?
Yes, we are USDA GAP certified, and we have been for about the past 4 years. And to become GAP certified, you have to show that you're trying to prevent people and animals from coming in and contaminating your growing area. So this is a farm that, let me go outside and I'll show you. This is almost 4 acres. So we have not fenced this area off. So at the time, in order to become GAP certified, we placed the cow panels to try to prevent more so animals than people, because we don't lock anything. So it was approved, and it worked for us to get our GAP certification to have the cow panels.
That's so different. I've never seen that in the high tunnels. That's just so amazing. That I know a lot of farmers will really learn from that to help. Like I said, I know it's for GAP certification, so they're definitely going to be interested to understand and learn for that purpose, but then also for deer pressure. That's just amazing that you have that there. So could you share, like, we talked about the raised beds and them being there and the purpose of them for flooding, and do you I'm assuming, and I think I've seen, you tie off your tomatoes, your cucumbers, because you have all of this vertical space. Do you utilize it for anything else other than tying off? Do you do hanging plants? and flowers and other spaces or herbs? Do you use that a head space for anything?
Right now, the main headspace use is tying off the cucumbers and certain varieties of tomatoes that we plant. And I will say this, in 9 years, we have tried everything. We have tried the weave on tomatoes, we've staked tomatoes, cucumbers, we tried to use cow panels. We've gone through every technique you can think of. And in the end, using the roller hook system, running a cable across the top, using the roller hooks, that has worked out better than anything we tried. And on our determinate varieties of tomatoes, we actually do the stake and we use the cattle wire to create baskets to go around those. And that has worked better. And I will show you in another tunnel over here, the tomatoes. And it really creates an area. It's easier to keep it cleaner and gives you a better walking path. These are some of the tomato berries. And as you can see, they're all on strings. And like I said, and these are the cage tomatoes. And again, that's what has worked best for us.
Definitely, definitely. And I know earlier you and I was talking that sometimes new and beginning farmers think that we do these things and just because we have a lot of time on our hand, like tying off and stringing cucumbers, and they're not realizing it's for a purpose of keeping the fruit off the ground. I mean, it's really to help with that and many other things. And could you share that just to for our new and beginning farmers that be watching this and just not understanding why we go to this work when it comes to cucumbers, zucchini, tomatoes, different those type of fruits that we harvest.
Yes, and I will tell you from experience, in the beginning, we did not string or do anything with the cucumbers. We just let them grow on the ground, and it was not a good experience. For one, it was snaky trying to walk in and find the cucumbers. One of our main customers in the beginning was the Pearl River Resort, and they wanted their cucumbers to look perfect and not have the yellow side.
Mhm.
And most of the cucumbers will, if they grow on the ground, they're going to have a side that's yellow. And when you string the cucumbers, you get a beautiful, perfect cucumber. It does take more work in the beginning because, like you said, you do have to take the time to string them. We keep ours, we try to keep them trimmed to one vine. And in the beginning, we thought, well, you won't get as much production because you're cutting off most of the suckers and not letting it have multiple vines. Well, that was not true. We had actually had more production once we started doing one vine and stringing it. And if you ask the employees, they would tell you it's a lot easier to harvest cucumbers standing up than it is to bend over and be searching on the ground for cucumbers. And it's also the same with the tomatoes. Most people would rather harvest. We grow tomato berries, which is the ones you see here. And most people like harvesting those better than they do the determinate bush varieties, because again, you're bending down, you're looking under the plants. The tomato berries get to a point where you're pretty much eye to eye with the plant, and you very rarely have to bend over to harvest those. And again, it's a lot. It takes some time and some effort to keep those trimmed and keep them. The tomato berries also, we usually try to keep to one vine. If I was a small farmer myself, I think it would be a lot easier to maintain all of this with us operating 4 farms at different locations. It's a little bit harder to keep it to one vine, but we try our best to do that.
That's amazing. So we heard several risks, mitigating opportunities. One, our backs, just our health, because think about doing this for years on end. Also, we heard you say that snakes, so different type of animal pressure is in those vines when we're not pulling them up off the ground and so forth. So that is definitely what we want to share, because it's a purpose for everything. When we're farming, it's a reason why we do these particular things. So let me get to some of our questions. And Daphne, if it's anything else you want to share with us in the high tunnel, we definitely would love to see that now, but we can kind of transition if you would like to some questions. But
Okay.
we definitely want to allow you to share the high tunnel as much as you see fit.
Okay. And I did want to say, after being here 9 years, and I tell my crew, I try to tell them every week, learn to work smarter, not harder. And like you were saying, we all get older each year, and you have to find ways that you can continue doing this without breaking your back. So again, work smarter, not harder. And that's my saying to them, and I hope, and to myself. And I'm always looking for better ways to do everything. So on my end, every week I try to listen to other farmers or read articles from other farmers that are doing it or that have been doing it longer than me, so that I can learn. And again, it's an every week learning experience.
Wow, that's amazing. So at this time, we're going to switch gears. I have a few questions I wanted to ask Daphne, and definitely we would get the questions in the chat. And Miss Lori, I'll come to you. I see your hand, but definitely wanted to ask these questions first that we kind of have discussed. Why did the management of Choctaw Fresh choose high tunnels? Do you feel like that was a reason for mitigating risks as well? What was the purpose of just using high tunnels and not growing in the ground right at the beginning?
Again, I think some of it was poor soil. Even with even trying to grow field garden, the soil was just not that great. But I think the main reason was season extension. They learned that you could possibly start a month and a half earlier in the spring, and go, maybe a month longer in the fall. So that was their main reason for that.
Okay, great. Because again, you said 18 high tunnels. I did hear you mention that you're getting ready to do some in-ground work, but that's, like I said, that you said you got started in 2012. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so from 2012 to like recently, you all have been doing high tunnels, if I could remember correctly. So when I heard you say in-ground, I just remember that just haven't been something that has been a management style of Choctaw Fresh. So just wanted to make sure I asked that question for the audience to understand why all of these high tunnels were utilized. And would you think also, does it help with like extreme sunlight, excess wind? Are you also like glad you have high tunnels when it comes to that, or that's not a factor?
That can go both ways. Like last year, I spoke to a lot of farmers when we're flooding all the time, and the high tunnels were a blessing to us because we weren't having to worry about all the rain. We control all the irrigation inside the tunnels. We even tried to start one field garden last year, and everything got washed out. Wow. Because of the spring rains. So to me, that is a big plus on the tunnels. Now, the downside, when it gets July, August, the temperatures in the tunnels are extreme. And even with shade cloth, you're only talking about a 10-degree temperature difference. So, you risk people overheating in the tunnels, the plants getting too hot, bloom reduction. So, July and August is hard in the tunnels, and that's usually when we don't have anything in production. And I every day I strive to try to think of a way that you could actually remove the top. If you could remove the top on tunnels for July and August, I mean, I would think this is the only way to go, is high tunnels.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. And then when you were mentioning about even people coming there, your volunteers, the employees that could get overheated, and you mentioned to us about your GAP certification. What procedures or things that have you put in place for them when they're working with the crops and working in the high tunnel? What type of management practices have you put in place to keep like crop contamination and so forth, things like that? Could you share that with us?
Yes, and one thing on the tunnels, we try to strive to the crew, get in and get out. Try to get in the tunnels and do all the work before noon every day. Even right now, the temperatures are extreme in these tunnels after 12 o'clock. So if at all possible, you work in the tunnels from 6 to noon and do all your outside the tunnels work after. Again, we are GAP certified, so we had to come up with a food safety plan, and it does make it more extreme with the rules you have to follow. So you have to have a login sheet to show anybody that comes to the farm. You have to go over rules with them as to what they can and cannot do inside the tunnels. And before COVID, we were doing lots of school tours. So you would have kids come out. And, for us, again, it's not so much you can't touch anything, but you just have to know that certain things you can't do inside the tunnels, which I think if you're not GAP certified, it wouldn't be, so difficult with all the rules that you have to follow. Of course, for our employees, we have to wear gloves if we're harvesting. There's a lot of rules we have to follow on the harvesting part of it. When we have visitors come, now they aren't wearing gloves, but most of the time they're not harvesting. And if we do an area, it's usually a limited area that we let them actually harvest from.
Okay. Got you. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Also, let's kind of move to your water setup in your tunnel. Can you share with us, is it well, community water / city? Because that's more like a town.
Yeah.
Where is the water coming from for the tunnels?
Yes, all the farms now are community water.
Okay.
Public water. The farm we relocated from, it was on a well system, but again, we're not farming that one. So now everything is community water. All of our high tunnels have drip irrigation. With being GAP certified, we do have to submit a water test every year.
Okay.
Now here we actually get to submit the one that the tribe, they actually test their water every year. So we submit their report, but it has to be very detailed, more detailed than just a regular water report. Like they ask for certain things to be GAP certified.
Okay. Okay. And that was going to be my next question. Do you have to test the water? And as a risk, we feel like we should when we're dealing with public water and even our well. I mean, we need to test our well periodically.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Now, with your transportation, when you're transporting, vegetables in your harvest to various sites, or just pulling things off the land. I'm assuming for GAP and being certified organic, it has to be a vehicle that's dedicated for the farm. Is that correct? Or could you share with us how you mitigate risk with contamination?
You do have to show that you clean your vehicles. We have a cleaning log, and you're supposed to at least once a week sanitize the harvest or transport vehicle. And with that, we have an extra step because we are certified organic. So even the cleaning products we use for inside the harvest van has to be certified organic. But
Wow.
yes, we try our best to only transport in the vehicles that are designated for that.
Okay. That's what I thought, because that's very important. We don't, want cross contamination, and understanding that it's very important to somewhat have that dedicated vehicle versus putting vegetables in all different sorts of vehicles and worker vehicles and so forth. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I have 3 more questions that was asked of me by a participant that was not able to make it today, but wanted just some information. What federal crop insurance programs is Choctaw Fresh a part of any of those that do you know of?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Great to know. And what the other question is to the audience as a whole. This particular audience member wanted to know for his anecdotal experiences with insurance programs. They kind of wanted to know, have you all utilized any of these type of federal crop insurance programs, regardless of your region? So if you could share that in the chat, and we definitely could have that information for other participants in the future. But this is a question for the whole group. If you have utilized federal crop insurance programs, and this is for everyone, regardless of your region, but specifically if you're certified organic. So if you're a certified organic farm, do you utilize federal crop insurance programs? And then if so, how has it benefited you or not? Could you share that in the chat? And we'll definitely share that with our participants at a later date. So Miss Lori, can you come forward and ask your question while I pull questions from the chat?
Yes, I certainly will. One is a brief statement, and then the other one is a question. And the question is, first of all, I'm so very excited, Daphne, that you're doing this workshop today, because this is the type of farm that I want to work on, or I want to own. Is the organic farm. Now, my question was, the information that you're going over for GAP certification, that's a new term to me. So my question was, what are the benefits of being GAP certified? And then my second is just a brief picture, I guess you could say. I want to show you what I found on the internet, no-till farming. And it turns out this is exactly what I'm doing anyways on our small acreage, and did not even realize that it had a term called no-till organic gardening. So are y'all familiar with this book?
I am not, but I will definitely be looking it up.
Yes, I'm just going through a few chapters so far. It just arrived a few days ago. It's very helpful. So I will put that in the chat box down at the bottom. And then if you could just answer my one question on the benefits of GAP.
Well, for us, we try our best to keep most of the produce on the reservation. And with that, we wanted to get into the tribal schools and really to any schools, in the local areas. And to get into the schools, you are required to be GAP certified. And there's different tiers in the GAP certification. So the higher you go, the more places you are able to sell. So,
Very good.
yeah, so like, I think the tier that we are on right now, we could sell to Kroger, Walmart, any of those places if we ever wanted to. And some places require it, some don't. But as the years have gone by, we have noticed that more places require GAP certification than when we first started.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lori, for your question. So we have a question here, and you answered it briefly, but if you could go into it a little bit more in depth, where do you sell your produce? I think you mentioned it, but could you share more?
Yes, one of our biggest customers in the past, again, has been the Pearl River Resort. And that is the casino operation and resort operation owned by the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. And actually, they're the reason that we came to be, because one of their chefs he was like, why are we purchasing so much produce, ordering it from places when we could be purchasing it from here if it could be grown here? So, again, that's one of our customers. We do a mobile market. We actually have a trailer set up where we are capable of going out into communities, going out into the tribal communities and taking the market to people. And actually, now we are starting to focus more on that, and we're hoping through this season and the fall season that we will be able to do that even more, where it's almost on a daily basis. We take the market out to a different community every day. And we also do, we call them kiosk tables. That is an honor table that we set up at the casinos here for all the employees. So as they're coming to work, leaving work, they can purchase vegetables that way. We also work with all the programs that the tribe has, like their diabetes program, their elderly program, their health center, and we try to get as much produce as possible to those programs, sometimes donating and then them purchasing. And we also got into the schools this year, so we do sell to the schools. And I'm trying to think, we also do a custom harvest program where we take orders online or, through phone calls, emails, and we set up a time for people to come and pick up their order.
Wow, how have you all grown? That's amazing.
Yes.
That is so amazing. So the next question is, how were your supply chain impacted during the pandemic? And I do hear that majority of it is on tribal land, but was it impacted? Could you share that with us?
Yes, we were very much impacted. Last year we planted for a huge harvest for Pearl River Resort, and the remainder of the products were supposed to be sold to individuals or the programs I was talking about. So we had a huge crop planted. COVID hit, the casinos shut down, all the programs were closed. We weren't allowed to go out and sell. So we had nowhere for all the tunnel, production to go. So we worked with tribal administration and came up with a plan. They purchased at a reduced price everything that we grew, and it was delivered and it went to families in quarantine. So we delivered about 4,000 pounds, over 400 boxes of produce throughout the growing season to the families that were quarantined.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know they were very, very grateful for that produce, and then it wasn't lost. So that's a good pivot. And a lot of farmers had to pivot during the
Yes.
pandemic. Wow. So we have a question. Did you say roller hook system? That was a question.
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind sharing what that is for audience members that do not know what a roller hook system is? Could you share that?
Yes. And we purchased these from Johnny's. What it is, you run a cable across the purlins on the top of the high tunnel. And then the roller hook is actually just a, and I can go and show you one. It's just a metal piece with string on it that actually rolls out, and these things last. I think we've had these same roller hooks for probably 5 years. There's that much string on the roller hook. So you pull the string down and you attach your plant to it, and as it grows you can release more string and let the plant down. And then at the end of the season, we take those down usually and sanitize those. So they're reusable. And that's pretty much all it is just they've come up with a design, a metal hook with string. And like I said, we've tried other things, but to me, this is the best.
Yes, I've heard that too. We mentioned Sam Humphreys, a good farmer friend of ours. I know Sam utilizes that as well. And I think one of the things he always emphasizes is the clamping, how it closes on the plant, is not bruising and so forth. I think he likes that part of this type of system as well.
Yes. And the more you become familiar with it, we do purchase trellis clips, and they're these little plastic clips, and you're correct. It actually pinches onto the string and not the plant. It just goes around the plant. And those are also reusable. And I think you can actually purchase some that are, they can decompose. So you're not just buying a lot of plastic, but like I said, we reuse ours. And once you become more familiar with this system, you're not using as many on each plant because you learn how to take from the bottom and move it to the top as the plant grows.
Great.
To save money.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Well, we definitely want to bring highlight to one of our partners at NCAT Tuskegee University. We have Mr. Russell Bean on. So thank you, Mr. Russell, for sharing information in the chat that can assist the farmers on the line. Please check that information out, as well as his contact information, because they do the same thing we do for his videos, the Zoom videos, do technical assistance and workshops. So thank you so much for being here today. One of the things that Mr. Russell wanted to share with you, Daphne, is doing that June to August. And you said July and August, you usually don't grow because it's so hot. Is a good time to solarize. He was saying you can solarize the tunnels, which is that probably what you're doing? Because you didn't necessarily go into what is going on in the tunnel during July, August. Could you share that?
We have done that before in some of the tunnels. I will tell you this, something I've learned over the past couple of years. Used to, at the end of the season, we would pull all the plants out and let the tunnel pretty much just be bare during that time. And the more I researched and the more farmers I listened to, I've learned that it's actually better to go right back in with something else. So either a cover crop that will live in there, or I just leave the plants that are there and let them continue growing. And, if they produce, they produce. And if they don't, they're at least they're there, and you're not baking. With the soil being uncovered, it can kind of just get baked in there. And this year I noticed with us leaving the plants longer, it actually helped. So that's another method and I'm hoping to figure out ways of actually maybe getting another plant back in there that will do okay in the heat. And again, like I said, trying better shade cloth, like we were only using a 30% shade. And I found out from a farmer the other day that he actually goes with up to 55%.
Wow.
And that it did not affect the production enough to not use it. So, like I was saying earlier, every season, it's just you learn and try different things and see what works. And something I forgot to mention, in the beginning, we used to plant every tunnel. We'd have one whole tunnel of tomatoes, one whole tunnel of cucumbers, and the disease and insect pressure could be horrible, especially being organic. And from other farmers, I've learned to do where you actually plant different crops on each row. So one tunnel may have, as you saw in these, you'll have a row of tomatoes, a row of squash, row of cucumbers, row of bell peppers. So to me, every tunnel is almost like a small little mini farm where you have all your different vegetables instead of just one tunnel of something. And I think it's better than doing a tunnel of one crop.
Got you. Thank you. And see, that's again mitigating risk. You're, as you say, each season you're learning something and you're having to pivot. You learn something, you have to pivot. That because we're working in nature. It's not a one size fit all for any farmer. And so and then we have to be mindful that we're in microclimates. So, it could be, 80 degrees 2 miles down the road, but we may be 90. So we have to understand we're in microclimates and we have to pivot and understand what to do on those microclimates. So one of the things, I think this is our last question in the chat. So if you have any other questions, please place them in the chat. We had a question, did Choctaw Fresh participate and apply for any of the coronavirus type assistance programs when your supply chain shut down, like with the resort?
We did not, not any of the ones that I think you're talking about, but we did. Choctaw Fresh Produce is pretty much grant funded. I mean, we do our sales, but more, most of our funding comes from grants. And we had some really great grant supporters that reached out to us to offer us COVID relief.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
amazing. So that was awesome. I mean, because without them, it wouldn't be possible to be here. And it was really great of them to reach out and, without us even having to go out and ask for it.
Great. That's so great to hear. But how you pivot is phenomenal. And again, that's mitigating risk. It seemed like you didn't have a lot of loss for its produce because you were able to pivot to be able to provide the food to the actual tribal members. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Oh, wow. That's great. So great to hear. So at this time, is it any other questions? Do we have any other questions? Please place them into the chat. If any of our participants would like to come on and ask your question, please raise your hand. We can recognize you that way as well. And at this time, we definitely want to thank you so much, Daphne, for just the information. And to be honest with you, I did not know that you were going to walk the farm. So you gave us a double treat. I didn't realize, because nowadays, I think most of us have joined at least one Zoom this year. And so we usually, of course, everyone is in a building and they're sitting and able to provide, but we love to see virtual farm tours. So you gave us both worlds today, and we so appreciate you. We just appreciate you being able to do that. To share with us how the high tunnel look, and then people can visually see what risks management practices have been put in place for Choctaw Fresh. And and then we would definitely share your information, Daphne, email address, if people want to reach out to ask more questions about your production there. And again, to continue to learn more. You all are growing exponentially, and I'm so glad to hear that, because of course we know that's going to benefit the tribal members. So we just appreciate you. Any other questions? Please throw them in the chat. Daphne, I don't know if you're able to see, but we're getting a lot of thank yous for you being here and your time. And
I did want to,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
wanted to say, do a big shout out to my crew, because I couldn't do it without them. I wanted to say we actually lost a crew member to COVID last year, and we got down to myself and one other person, and then all of a sudden we had some people apply for jobs that we were very thankful for. We had a lot of young people come in, and we have a awesome crew right now. And you know, you have a hard time finding people that will stick with farming if you don't have a passion for it. And you know, I love having younger people on board to come up with ideas to make this work, and to know, you know, I want them to understand the importance of what you can contribute to the health of your community, and how important you are, and how to bring farming back. I mean, I that is my goal. I want to bring farming back and get people to see that, you know, unless you're like with us, unless you're growing it in your own backyard and not using any chemicals, you're not going to get healthier, more nutritious produce than what you can get from us, or we can come out and show you how to do it. And that's our goal.
That's amazing. And the people in Mississippi, please take Daphne up on that. That the food is just so amazing, because it's the love that's put in it from herself, her crew, because they want to be there and they want to provide the most healthiest food possible. So we do have one more question. Do you have problems with ants in the high tunnel?
Yes.
Okay. How do you
a
deal
major
with
problem?
that?
Well, we try to be as organic as possible, meaning and my crew will tell you, they sometimes they think it's crazy. We boil water and pour hot water on the ant beds. There's very few organic approved products that you can use for ants that actually work, that we have found. So, you know, I guess the water, it does kill some, but it'll chase some of them away. And if you can ever kill the queen, then they will leave. That's our main way of trying to get rid of ants. And of course, as you all know, ants are what brings most of the aphids in. So we do fight aphids a lot. But, you know, that's just something I think you learn to deal with the ants.
But sharing that, I thank you for sharing that, because we got to figure out ways. And definitely when we're trying to create food that's you know, non-chemical based agriculture, yeah, it may seem off kilter and far-fetched, but it works. And again, a lot of these practices are, you know, millennial. And that's
Yes.
my question to you. And if we don't have any more, we may close out with this one. But do you get those tribal management practices, information from the elders? Do they share and just, you know, do have those type of, and then probably via some of your employees?
We haven't in the past, but again, that's one of the reasons we're putting in this community demonstration garden, is that we hope to make it accessible to more elders and to people that can come out and, you know, give them a talking point. Let them tell their stories. Let them tell you how they used to do it, and let them see how we're doing it and how we can incorporate the things that they did into this garden. And, you know, we say organic, but we hope that people realize you're just growing it as naturally as you possibly can. And, you know, with the tunnels, we're hoping that by bringing tours out that we can show that that's what we're doing, and that it does give people the chance and opportunity to give you ideas of doing things and ways to do things.
Wow, that's so amazing, and I appreciate that, because it sounds like that even come from the pandemic as well, when you say that the economics focus had to be changed because of the pandemic, because the need of food, you saw it, we got to feed the tribal members. And so thank you so much for even adding that in, because all of the indigenous practices and traditional practices are still here. It is so many families utilizing those. So I'm thankful that you are highlighting their practices, and that they definitely can share that with the world. Like, because it have lasted thousands of years. We're talking about things that have lasted forever. And so that's wonderful that that community garden would be placed there. And hopefully NCAT could be a part of that in the future, to highlight the elders that come to the farm and share their wisdom with all of us, but especially the young people, the younger people within the tribe. So I'm so glad to hear that. Daphne, is there any last parting words? Is there anything else you would like to share? I don't see any more questions as of now, so don't want to hold you in the heat. And so could you share in your last parting words with us?
I did want to say a good community practice at the end of our growing season, whether it's fall, winter, or summer, we do allow a community U-pick. So we allow community members to come out and pick anything that is left over in the tunnels. And people love this. You'll see people come out, you know, whole family will come out to pick. And, you know, there's so few gardens now that it does give people a chance to show their kids, you know, this is where your food comes from. We actually grew potatoes in the high tunnels this year, the first time, and did really well. And I'm hoping to do a community U-pick where we can actually have kids come out and they can see, you know, as I was growing up, I got to dig potatoes. You ask kids now, have you ever dug potatoes, and they don't really know what you're talking about. So we hope to incorporate that into getting people out into appreciating where food came from even more.
Great, great to hear. That's so great to hear. Is there anything else you would like to share?
I think that's it.
Well, we definitely thank you so much, Daphne, for your time today. And again, we are so glad that you shared the high tunnels with us, that we could do that virtual farm tour with you, as well as be able to ask you questions about risk management. So everyone, please check your chat. Daphne email address is in the chat, as well as Choctaw Produce shared with us that you can always find them on Facebook. So please check them out there and like their page so you can follow what they're doing and keep abreast with all of the new activities they're doing on the land. And so at this time, this will be the end of our risk management, our first workshop, but definitely want you all to know this is a what I would consider like a series. The NCAT Gulf States Regional Office will be doing risk management this month virtually. So they will be on Zoom. And then we're moving into face-to-face in July. So please keep wherever you were able to find us today, just keep that on your radar to learn where we will be in the next 2 months when it comes to risk management and sharing these farmers with you. So thank you all for joining us today. We thank you so much, Daphne, and have a great day, everyone.